Soma Talks podcast is sponsored by Elevated by the Cannabis Lady. Owner Jill Cohen is passionate about cannabis. Her dispensary caters to those with a refined taste and believe that cannabis can transform lives into an elevated experience when properly used. The plants, with their healing benefits, bring happiness while lowering anxiety, pain, and many other symptoms. Elevated by the Cannabis Lady offers a 5-star experience that starts with a friendly environment and highly trained bud tenders ready to guide every customer on their journey. Jill and her team are committed to a higher level of wellness. Check out the Cannabis Lady at 9 Highland Place, downtown Maplewood. Be sure to mention the Soma Talks podcast and get 20% off. That's 20% off. Righteous bucks. The Cannabis Lady, the very best. And welcome to the Soma Talks podcast, sponsored by Coda Kitchen and the Cannabis Lady and Davis Advocacy and Consulting. I'm Lee Navlin, and if you're looking for action in Soma, don't call Soma Action. Call my sister from another mister, Ileana Castillo.
I kind of like that one.
You like that?
You put a lot of thought on that one.
I did. And I had to practice it because I was afraid, it was gonna twist. I wasn't gonna get it right, so I practiced that the whole drive over here.
I see that you've been following the drama online.
I haven't. As a matter of fact, Ileana, I actually, regarding the drama, I was gonna post this on Soma Talks,
Right.
but I just wanted to run it by you first.
Okay,
so,
sure.
Okay, so this was gonna go on Soma Talks. So, Ileana, before you asked me to do the Soma Talks podcast, I, like so many other members of these local hate groups, did not care for you because you were a woman and a Latina woman and a single mom. I felt this meant that you had no right to have an opinion of your own. As a white person, I believed that I knew more than you about everything. I felt that you should be listening and learning from me, not the other way around. Turns out as a white person, I was wrong about you, Ileana. A woman who grew up speaking Spanish, not English, a single mom, as I just mentioned earlier. The reason I was wrong is because you're actually a very intelligent woman, a very thoughtful woman, with a great deal of common sense, and a proud woman too, and rightfully so. You're also not afraid to speak your mind, and that makes you interesting. You're also a very funny woman, and very beautiful too. Because of all this, Ileana, I've learned not to be afraid of people like you. You're one in a million. Ileana, I love you. So many people in this community love you. We call those people normal people, and I do love you. I mean that.
Oh,
You like that?
I got it teared up. Thank you.
Now, this was a part my wife said I couldn't include, and I think I should be able to include this part. Okay. Well, finally, one last thing. To the white women, the progressive Karens that won't leave Ileana alone, why don't you go spend your husband's money, go to the mall or something, stop wasting everybody's time on social media, maybe hit the gym too, get rid of some of that baby weight. What do you think of that? She said I can't. She said not to include that. Yeah, she said not to include that. All right. So I'm not going to put that on Soma Talks. Okay, but the rest of it, you like the rest of it? The rest works.
Very
right?
well written. Thank you. I appreciate the sentiment.
Okay, so hey, look, we're going to take a short break. We have a fantastic guest coming up on the Soma Talks podcast. So let's just a quick break, commercial break, and we'll be back in just 1 second. Davis Advocacy and Consulting, also known as DAC, is your trusted partner in legal solutions. From business law to civil rights, DAC is here to tackle all your legal needs. With specialized services in employment law, trust and estates, education, medical malpractice, and civil rights, DAC is here to be your trusted advisor. Let DAC guide you through the complexities of the legal system and secure the outcomes you deserve. Contact Davis Advocacy and Consulting today for reliable and tailored legal support. That's calldac.com. Again, that's calldac.com. Davis Advocacy and Consulting, turning advocacy into empowerment. All right, I'm Lee Navlin, and I'm with Ileana Castillo. Again, you're listening to the Soma Talks podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up once again for Madhu 3.14 equals pi. Madhu Pai.
Madhu.
Thank you.
What do you think of that nickname?
I love it.
You've never heard that one before, right?
Never.
What, the Pi
Ever.
3.14?
Yeah.
3.14. I will say Pi Day is our national family holiday. So,
Aw.
I
okay.
totally appreciate that. We celebrate it every year.
So it's actually 3.14-592-6535-89793238. That's actually,
Wow.
that's,
Oh,
I looked
yeah.
that up. Yeah, I didn't know that by heart. So.
I'm not that great at math.
Welcome,
welcome
Madhu.
to
How
the
you
Soma
How
Talks
you been
podcast.
feeling?
Yeah,
How
no
you
math
feeling?
required here.
Yeah.
I am good. Thank
You're
you for
good.
asking. I feel a little bit like I'm, going to give James Davis, a run for as many as the most frequent guest here.
Ah.
And as far as hits are concerned, James, if you're listening, we're hoping that Madhu hits and not only meets your number, but beats your number as far as the number of hits
Game
listeners.
on.
Right.
Game
so game
on.
is on, James. Yes.
I actually have a bone to pick with James, actually. Well, I have many bones to pick with James.
Get in line. Get in line.
Get in line.
Yes, but I do understand the last time he was here, you guys asked him who his favorite poster online was, and he did not say me.
Oh,
And
he did not. Yes, that's
that
true.
shocked me. James Davis and I, over the years, have had some major rows on social media, like full on,
Yeah.
arguments.
Who did he mention? Who did
He
James?
mentioned Stacey Mayweather, something
Stacey
like that.
Mayweather. And
I think
Madhu
that's
Pai?
her last name.
Yeah. Okay, listen. So, James,
Yeah.
I'm apologizing as the man in the room. I think I can speak for other men. And,
I know.
Madhu Pai is everybody's
That
favorite.
is true. You guys have
Thank
had
you.
some really interesting back and forth online.
We have.
Respectfully. Nobody,
Yes.
but yeah,
And
that's true.
I appreciate that, and I think he appreciates that about me. James and I disagree on a lot of things, but unlike a lot of other people, we can be collegial at the
Right.
end. Of
Yeah.
You disagree, civil. And, one of the things, and Joan Crystal taught me this a long time ago. We all know Joan Crystal. She said, I don't take arguments from one post to the next. And I've tried to kind of abide by that. I don't, obviously, but I try to say, hey, I didn't like this guy there, but I'm not going to necessarily assume he's going to be against my opinion here. But Matt, I got to say one thing about you, Matt. People do respect your opinion. I'll write a post or whatever, and I'll get like a couple likes, and you'll write something like, hey, Lee, I concur completely with you. Then you'll add your point. You'll get like 25 likes. And I'll be like, why is she
true.
getting 25 likes?
Yeah,
I'm the one who
that's
started
true.
it. Yeah, I got like 2 likes.
Yeah, I agree.
So people really do appreciate what you have to say.
I hope so. I mean, listen, most of what I try to do is just give people information, but I am also a little bit like, how a shark is drawn to blood? I am like a shark drawn to just stupidity. And
That's
when
social
people
media.
say things that aren't fact-based or intentionally misleading, it actually makes me a little insane. And I should probably just let it go. But,
we can never let it go.
often I don't. And you know what? I just feel like no one's helped by not knowing facts and the actual truth about situations. And so, that's where I am.
You ever do one of these things like where someone writes something and you're so angry and you look at it, and you go back, finally like, all right, I'm going to respond, and you respond, and it takes you a long time to respond, and then you go back like 10 minutes later and no one's commented and then 20 minutes later and then like a half hour, no one's responded, and you're like, I'm just going to delete it, because you get to the point where you're like, well, no one's even going to like yell at me about it.
I know. People, it's interesting to me. People get riled up by, things that you think they would never get riled up by, and then they don't get riled up by things that are so obvious that they should get riled up by. What happened to you guys? Perfect example of that. I don't know how the community at large, the local press, I don't know how everyone's not talking about how you were threatened or your sponsors were threatened by Soma action. I mean, that is incredible that they tried to unfairly influence your sponsors and threatened them with a boycott if they didn't stop sponsoring you. Like, I have to believe that is illegal. Are they a 503c?
According to our attorney, what they did was
It's not really legal what they did.
Yeah,
No.
it's amazing to me because I've lived in this community. I've lived in Essex County my whole life, basically. I know so many people, so many businesses, so many people that do restaurants and shops and whatnot, and my understanding is that this woman, their president, who's lived here for only a couple years, decides that she's going to undo my 25 years, 30 years of relationships with some of these people, and accuse us of being something we're not, without people rolling their eyes and saying, "What the hell's wrong with you, lady?"
Who is this lady? Does anybody know who this person is?
It was the first time I ever heard her name.
I don't even know who this person is. Listen, I got to tell you,
The first time I heard about her was when the vendor,
Yeah.
the sponsor first approached me and said, I got this weird call from Soma Action. I'm not even mentioning woman's name because I'm not even sure she deserves our
No,
attention.
yeah,
But
I agree.
it's the prez. You can look her up. I don't know what she was thinking.
I got the email from one of her sponsors and told me what happened, and I
Yeah.
was floored. I was like,
Yeah,
wow.
and the sponsor told her to go jump in whatever. Go,
Good. I'm glad. I gotta say,
go to hell.
I went to Coda right after I heard and had drinks.
I know a lot of people are telling me, like, I'm going to support them now.
I have a girl gang. Shout out to my tribe.
Thank you for that.
We have a Friday happy hour, which I'm missing to be here with you, but that's
thank you.
okay.
They do have their happy hour, yes.
We can still squeeze that in. We can
Thank
squeeze that in.
you.
Well, actually, it's
Until 6.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
a Jew. I'm supposed to. It's sunset. I'm supposed to behave
You
myself.
have to
We shall see.
stop eating. But we love to go to Coda, for happy hour. So I'm really happy.
Well,
to
thank you
be,
for that. And the
supporting
Canna
them.
Boss lady, please buy all your
Yes.
products from her. Yesterday was her birthday, by the way, and she had a little birthday party at her place, and it was wonderful. She's so kind.
She's
and
really kind.
She's working so hard at that business, and
Woman owned, right?
Woman owned,
Woman-owned.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the challenges and the
Small
hoops she had to
business.
go through before weed was legal, and
Yeah.
hoping this might happen, and then
Yep.
only wanting it to be in Maplewood because of the charm and the allure. And
Well, she's got the good stuff,
Yes,
guys.
yes.
You
She
guys-
does got the good
She
stuff.
got the good stuff. I mean, listen, I think, I hope Soma Action's members have the moral clarity to say something to their leadership.
I haven't
and
heard a
to
word
offer
from
an apology.
anybody.
No, we haven't heard
Nothing.
anything
That's
from
so
them.
disappointing.
And by the way, talk about our sponsors. James Davis, the attorney, another sponsor. If you need an excellent attorney, James Davis. I mean, he's just he's top dog. He's a tough guy, and he really wants to help people.
Well, I got to say, there are these community groups that purport to be a force of good, and many of them do some, some good.
Sure.
But they are led by some really, really toxic people. Soma Action, Soma Justice. Even, I was surprised by Friends of Frank. I think good people join these groups, and then they realize they're being led by people who will basically bring the hammer down the second you veer from their, dictated point of view. And we cannot have a world order where people lead through bullying and intimidation. Like, people need to speak up. I mean, honestly, isn't that why we don't want Donald Trump in the White House? Give me a break.
Why would Frank Sanchez's name still be attached to this movement? It makes no sense to me. He's got his job back. We move on, but they're still using the power that they built up through the movement to get his job back to do other things now, right? That's what it seems like is going on, right? They're trying to support specific candidates.
Yeah.
Now, I would imagine as a principal, Ileana, you know this more than I do. Principals doesn't endorse candidates, right? He doesn't, right? That's not supposed to be.
No, I don't think. No, the principal is not endorsing anybody. That's not where it's coming. It's just that one of the candidate at the last debate said that she was a supporter of Frank's cause. So the people that the group Friends of Frank. Twisted around saying like, oh, how dare you say that you support Frank? We don't remember you supporting him and blah, blah, blah and everything. Like, apparently she needed to tell them that she supported them. And they were basically saying like, how can you say this when you're going against Arun and Kwawi, who were the ones that voted for Frank to keep their job?
Right.
That's where they'd all...
So he may love those guys, right, to the end of time, and rightfully so. He got his job back, but, he's not supposed to be...
The argument is kind of ridiculous, and I'm happy to talk to you guys about the debate too. But
I saw you at the debate.
Yeah, I went to the debate, and listen, Arun opened with why I got nothing done over the last 3 years is because I had to deal with Frank Sanchez, which as a board member. Personnel is not a board level issue. It's actually the superintendent's job. And Kwawi spent a good amount of time reminding everybody that the board should not overstep and step into the superintendent's job. So given that Frank Sanchez was a personnel issue, I'm not exactly sure what the board or what Arun was doing all those months.
So that's interesting. So by the way, in case you don't know, Madhu was on the former Board of Ed member, but I didn't mention at the top of the... now, you were there. What years you were there?
I was there 2012 to 2019.
2019. So how many election cycles was that?
Two.
Okay, yes. And I know I voted for you both times.
Thank you.
Yeah, so did you vote for Madhu both times, Ileana?
No, I was still not into the board because I was pregnant then at the time with my baby, so I was not really into that.
All right, so you have one supporter here, just so you know.
Thanks
all
a
right?
lot, Ileana. Thank you.
Jeez, luckily she won.
I just
Can you
moved
imagine if you lost
in.
by one vote or something?
I know.
She won.
Yeah. By the way, just a shout out to my buddy Ian Grodman. When he ran with Fred Perfetta for mayor or a township committee, he lost by 4 votes to it was Jerry Ryan and Vic. So I think, it was Vic. He lost by 4 votes to Vic.
Oh wow,
Oh,
4
wow.
votes.
So ask Ian. What you guys say is a number 4 right now to him, and like he is like, well, why are you mentioning that number?
You
but anyway.
mentioned Jerry Ryan. He's such a good guy. I miss him. Shout out to
yeah.
Jerry.
R.I.P. Jerry Ryan.
Yeah.
Madhu, I have a question for
Yeah.
you. A lot of people online are asking this question, and I think you would know the respond. Do Board of Ed members should stay neutral when it comes to cases on the things that happen in the school district? Because people are confused, like they should stay neutral, they're violating ethic, or no, they shouldn't be involved. Like, for example, Rune and Kwawi, everybody think that they kind of broke a little bit the ethic with the whole Frank situation, everything. Is this true or not? Do they violate? What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. So one, I don't know what they particularly were doing, right? Because Frank's situation was intended to be managed by the superintendent. That's
correct.
his job. And quite honestly, it was being managed by the prosecutor's office, right? Because it had kind of moved out of the school district's hands and into the prosecutor's hands. So, what were you doing for 6 months? I'm not entirely sure. But beyond that, remember, the board is in a position of power to the superintendent, right? The superintendent's his employee. So when the superintendent's dealing with a personnel issue, the board is ethically obligated to not act in a manner that would have undue influence on the superintendent. Now, when you're showing up to board meetings wearing red, in favor of Frank publicly in the horseshoe, what you do in your own time, that's your own business, right? You can support whoever you want, but when you're in that horseshoe, you are a board member and you got to abide by board guidelines and rules. So absolutely what they did was unethical in their overt, I would say, like, promotion of Frank.
Before we go and talk about the first debate, I have a question for you. Do you think there's a little bit of bias on the Board of Ed? Like, for example, when everything happened with Frank, everybody went to defend Frank, but then we got the Jewish teacher and Seth Boyden that no one on the board even blinked. Like,
she just got suspended and that was it. She was like,
she got suspended in a heartbeat and no one. Do you see a little bit of bias there? Like, that's what I'm telling you. Like, shouldn't the board stay neutral? Or if you're going to defend everyone, or don't defend anyone?
I think the board should be doing everything possible to make sure that situations like Frank and Tamar Herman don't happen in the district, right? It was terrible. It was terrible for the parties impacted. It was terrible, for the community, right? But yeah, I think.
Well, Tamar didn't get the support from the school district.
And I think that was the difference, right? So Frank Sanchez is a beloved principal at Columbia. My daughter, who graduated from Columbia, had him as a principal. And I will say this about Frank Sanchez. My daughter had multiple principals while she was at Columbia. Yeah. And she went through COVID while, she was at Columbia. And the one thing I will say about Frank Sanchez is that he somehow managed to create a sense of community and togetherness, even though these kids were, in virtual learning and not in the building for 2 years. He managed to build a sense of community and belonging.
Well, the superintendent that was lost and a board of ed that seemed to be fighting and crumbling upon itself. So in your daughter's estimation, he was a kind of a rock.
He was a rock. He kept those kids going. I think he helped a lot of kids, social, emotional. He is a giving guy. But here's the thing. I think we should have empathy in our hearts for Frank and the impacted students. And what I didn't see is the empathy for the impacted student. And what I also didn't see, to your point, Ileana, is the empathy for Tamar Herman. But again, she did not have the community support.
No, she did not.
Brought it to the board's attention.
That's the strangest thing for me, but this place is nuts. By the way, Frank Sanchez, I saw him a couple of weeks ago, ran into him in town. He was with a couple of friends. I didn't say hi, but hey, I'm the guy that does the podcast that you probably don't listen to. But who he looks like? Baba Booey from the Howard Stern Show? Baba Booey?
No.
Well, this is Baba Booey from the Howard Stern Show, right?
Oh.
And there's Frank, right? So, Baba Booey. Frank, look at that. He looks just like Baba Booey from Howard Stern Show. That's what I thought it was. I thought it was Baba Booey first. I'm like, Brian, I'm with my wife. I'm like, I think that's Baba Booey from the Howard Stern Show.
I just met Frank yesterday.
He has a doppelganger.
He has a doppelganger. So anyway, when we make the Frank Sanchez movie, it would make sense that Baba Booey from the Howard Stern Show plays Frank Sanchez. So anyway,
yesterday was Columbia High School back to school night, and it was the first time I met him. I met Frank yesterday.
Seems like a nice guy.
I went up, introduced myself.
Oh, you did? Okay.
But he didn't know who I was. I just said, I'm Samantha, my daughter's name and whatever, introduced. He seems like a friendly guy. I'm not going to give him that. He does have that.
Well, now he's never going to forget you. Right?
Yeah, right. Madhu, question of the day.
Yes.
So we had the first debate happening recently. I was there. I saw you, and there was a lot of people there. I was to be the first debate.
Yep.
All chairs were filled.
You guys were both at the debate?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, we were both there. She was sitting on the other side. I was sitting next to Rocio Lopez.
Yeah, I was late traffic like you were for this
Oh,
podcast.
yeah?
Yeah, so that's why I didn't get to the debate.
Rocio Lopez, if you are listening, you have owed me a Soma t-shirt since 2000 and maybe 15. So I am here and I am still waiting for that t-shirt.
Yeah, she's waiting
Rocio
for that
Lopez,
t-shirt.
you owe some t-shirts. Well, at
Yeah.
least one t-shirt. Yeah,
I
but now
know,
that you're going to
Brazil.
give, how about, we had you in the pocket. We want 3 t-shirts. That's what we would like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
t-shirts.
3.
Please
3.
deliver 3
Yes, yes,
t-shirts.
yes,
So,
I would
I
like mine in yellow, by the way.
I like mine in black.
Black, okay.
I negotiated with Rocio and that whole negotiating
supposed to
team
get one. Yeah,
2
yeah.
times, and I'm just shocked by what's
What were your
happening.
thoughts about the debates? Let's go with that. How did you feel the candidates answered? How did you feel? Who did good? Who do you thought could have done better? I want to hear your perspective.
Listen, this is the first debate. There's 3 debates. One thing I will say about this community is we take our Board of Elections very seriously. It's a little extra, but it's great. It's great for transparency. It's great for people to get informed. Back in the day, there was a time period where I think every group in town, I think including Soma Talks, had their own questionnaire.
We did at one time.
We've now
yes.
right-sized that. So just for everybody listening who might not know how this works, there's, I think, 3 questionnaires now, right? The Soma Justice Questionnaire, the Village Green candidate statements and questions. I think there's a CPAC questionnaire.
Yeah, CPAC, yes.
And then there's 3 debates, one hosted by the League of Women Voters, President's Council, one by the CCR, one by the Hilton Neighborhood Association. So the first one was President's Council. All 7 candidates were there.
Yeah.
There's 2 slates, right? The 2 incumbent, Kwawi and Arun, are running with Bethany Joseph. There's a slate of 3 independent candidates, Jeff Bennett, who was on the board with me, who I adore, Deirdre Brown, Bimal Kapadia running as one slate, and then there's a single independent, Paul Stefan. I hope I'm pronouncing his name
Paul
right.
Stefan, yeah, sounds about right. Yeah.
I've been saying Stephen, but I get all the names wrong.
Stefan, yeah.
So, overall, listen, kudos to the President's Council. I think the debate hit on some really critical issues, the budget, intentional integration, board climate and culture. The one thing that I found so difficult was that the candidates were asked to answer multi-part, complex questions
in 1
minute,
I
which
know.
is
No.
near impossible to do with any sort
They
of
should have put it
substance.
at least 2 minutes so we can have a clear idea.
So they had to answer this in a minute.
Yeah, in a minute. And then not only that, in 30 seconds, she would put the chart up, and that gives the candidates pressure, like, oh, my time is up. And then I felt that was like
Who hosted this? This was hosted
the
by...
League of
Women's
Women.
Voters.
Yeah.
League of Women Voters.
Yeah, 1
and
minute wasn't
President's
enough.
Council. And they always do that. Like, that card is actually helpful, but when the 1 minute was really,
Now,
really
That would have
you've-
stressed me out. I'm
You've
sorry.
lived that, so you
I've lived that.
You
I've
didn't
lived
experience a minute having to answer things that quickly. I mean,
I don't remember. I think we had more time back in the day.
At
but
least 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Give them.
was it because there was just so many candidates this time around?
I
7?
think that's what it was, right? There were
Yeah.
7 candidates, although I feel like when I ran, there were like 9 candidates at one point. But, the other thing I will say is, come on, the League of Women Voters, like, if you're going to have a moderator, please make sure that she can pronounce people's names. Like, the way she butchered Arun Vadlamani's name every single time.
Yeah,
was
I caught
so
that.
Cringy.
Yeah, I watched that on.
Look,
on camera.
my English is my second language, and the second time he said it, I already could say his last name. I was like, come on, it was bad.
I have an unpronounceable name, and
Is it Vadlamani, right?
It's Vadlamani,
yeah.
and I just feel like it's very sensitive topic, maybe overly sensitive for me. But anyway.
Yeah, well, especially, right, show respect during a debate because,
Yeah.
votes are being decided based on your debate. And if you keep getting someone's name wrong, someone might just be like, well, I guess she doesn't care about him. I'm not going to vote for him. I don't know, things like that.
It takes 5 minutes to ask someone.
Yeah, who was it,
and
the
5 to
moderator?
practice.
Did we know? Was it?
It was someone from the League of Women Voters.
She was a
didn't
nice
live
woman.
here.
She
Okay.
Very
not-
nice.
yeah.
Very
All right.
nice. Just,
All right, so
anyway.
we won't need to call
We
her out.
won't dwell on that. We won't dwell on that. So, yeah, interesting debate. I think for Kwawi and Arun as incumbents, right, these debates are one of two things. It's either a platform to highlight all your accomplishments or a platform to defend all your failures, right? And this slate really has a hard climb because of the two incumbents, their defense of and support of an incompetent superintendent and an incompetent business administrator is highly unpopular in the district overall. They've shown what I would say is not a lot of empathy and consideration for the community, like Arun declaring transportation a success while parents were lining up around the block to talk about their hardships and pain with lack of busing and horror stories. They voted against the hazardous route settlement for busing. So that is dangerous routes where kids should not be walking. Kwawi tried to push through this really messy deleveling policy without ever talking to the community or getting the teachers engaged. He called it fully baked when it was like a hot mess of a policy. They've bungled other things. They've pissed off the teachers at the negotiating table. That's never a good thing for the kids. So it was no surprise that they were, kind of defensive.
They were a little defensive. I felt that too.
Yeah, and
they were.
They had their moments, where they had clarity, but they blamed a lot of things on prior boards and the current BOE colleagues.
Yeah, that seems to be the theme of that night, that they were basically blaming prior's president of board, especially Caitlin. They threw her under the bus. I felt they threw her. I don't know why.
That's that whole side, she is like their boogeyman. I don't know why. But their lack of accountability was kind of shocking. So I will say that. Bethany, who's running with them, she's really well liked in the community. And I think she'll draw votes for them.
You know what I was surprised with Bethany?
Yeah.
I didn't feel her response was very strong.
Yeah.
I felt that I was expecting her to have a more approach of things with more detail, but she was just very on the top touching it. It was very simple. I was expecting more from...
A lot of personal anecdotes, kind of mirrored her Village Green write-up. The one thing I found shocking was that she said her decision to run with the two incumbents was intentional. And I wish that
What
was
does she mean by
not the case.
intentional?
She made that choice, knowing everything about their voting record. And
You know that a lot of Jewish people is mad at her because when she said that she was running as a lesbian and then all that, she didn't mention as a Jewish too. She kind of
boy.
skipped that
Oh,
part.
she didn't mention that.
Yeah,
she
she
was...
left that one out, and I saw a couple of Jewish people complaining, why not say I would say hey, I'm a Latina mom, blah blah blah. Like she said lesbian, she didn't say Jewish.
Yeah, because I always tell people I'm a lesbian Jew. So, I was very clear about that.
Oh my God.
But no, I understand. Look, I met Bethany.
Does it really matter if she says it or not, if she's Jewish or not?
I don't know.
Well, but when you were
maybe she's afraid it's going to cost her votes, and the way with this Hamas and all this crazy stuff.
If
who
you're
knows?
running,
I
would
don't
you
know.
say I'm from India? That's my, or would you just leave it out?
No, hey, I can say it now. I was the first elected Asian person on the Board of Ed. But
Asian,
I didn't run on my identity, right? I
Right.
ran on my gravitas and my resume and what I would bring to the board. So
Right.
you
Well,
know,
she
that's
did say lesbian, so I figured if you're gonna say, might as well say Jewish.
Yeah.
I guess if we're
Well, then again, I don't say I'm straight. If I'm running, I'm a Latina straight mom. You don't say straight.
Right. And one thing I met Bethany once, a couple times actually, but we chatted once, and I didn't realize she went to Columbia High School. She's
She
a
did.
lifer here, so that to me counts for
She
something.
ignores me.
Yeah.
But I'm getting that a lot lately.
Once the election's over, I think
yes, people calm down when the elections
Right.
are
Once
over.
the election's over and they win or they
bet.
lose and they right, but
Yes. And listen, she, called the board acrimony heartbreaking. And I think she feels that way. She is a nice person, and yet she's running with two of the biggest offenders who bring the acrimony to the board. So that also doesn't make sense. I mean, let's not forget that Kwawi and Arun tore the community apart by creating and perpetuating a lie with Courtney Wingfield that the rest of the board colluded to fire the high school principal and other administrators.
Oh, I remember
this
that.
lie is openly debunked by the board's own counsel, and yet it is still in the water today.
So that's all over social media.
People are still saying it. And who does that to their board colleagues? At the debate, I ran into Chris Sabin, who I adore. Chris and I and another board member had a little corner. We had a little snack corner when we served on the Board of Ed. Chris and I agreed on maybe 2 votes during our entire 3 years together. Actually, I take that back. Our board was very good at coming to consensus. So we probably agreed on a lot more. He's a great guy. I enjoy him. We gave each other big hugs. And, it really kind of made me sad when I thought about what my board was like and when I think about what the board right now is like, right? I cannot ever imagine Chris Sabin calling me a liar,
right,
accusing me of something publicly. I can't imagine any of my board colleagues doing that. And we would never do that to each other. But,
how could you sit in a room with somebody who denounces you as a liar publicly, and then it's like, oh, hey, it's just politics. What? Look, I will punch you in the face. You say that about me again.
It's it was pretty. It was pretty bad. So anyway, that's this slate. I think we'll see. They have a very loyal following of people who have kind of, been this campaign infrastructure for a very long time. And they have people on their side, right, who have big networks. And so they have a very good orchestration of, the Board of Ed campaign. And so they get their candidates out. They have infrastructure. As an independent, you're basically galvanizing people to rally behind you. You don't have that built-in infrastructure, and you're out there doing a lot of it. So, I think they will be benefited, right, by that infrastructure in ways that other candidates won't. Paul Stefan, he's a lawyer. I've never heard of him.
He said
new to town, I guess. He was very articulate. He's a lawyer, right? So he knows how to do public speaks.
Looks like a very young lawyer, by the
Yeah,
way.
he declined us, by the way.
Yeah.
He's not coming to the podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, well, and I said this before, Paul, no one knows who you are. We don't even know if it's Stephen or Stefan. You got to get out there. People got to. You're not going to win. Obviously, you're going to come in 7th here. I'll bet the house on that. You got to get your name out there. Next time, podcast, Village Green, handshakes, doors, knocking doors, standing in corners. I mean, you got maybe people don't know who you are, dude.
Yeah. Well, listen, he is an immediate no for anyone who cares about proper playing fields for students and athletes. I think he's anti-turf, and he was open about that. He also, I think, along with Kwawi and Arun, cannot let go of the pool, which is a situation that was adjudicated in 2014, by the way.
Yeah, it was 10 years later. This is the new
we're still talking about that.
It's ridiculous. He also doesn't have any kids in the district, which, I think, especially given where we are right now, you really need to have that
Some sense.
experience
Correct.
in order to guide a brand new superintendent. Right? So if we had a long-term superintendent, I would say maybe that's less important. But with a new superintendent, it's really important that you bring that kind of school perspective and experience into your board role. And then, he claims to be a former teacher. I think he taught
But not in the school district. I think he was in another. He wasn't very clear
I think
about
he might
that.
have been Teach for America. I'm not entirely
yeah.
sure. But hey, I mean, Jeff actually was a certified teacher, right? He taught in a school district for a
You
couple
got
of
to be
years.
careful how you say. I taught stand-up comedy for 10 years. Doesn't mean I'm a teacher. I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
I know.
I was a great stand-up comedy teacher, but
I mean, he does have classroom experience. If he did Teach for
Exactly.
America, it's I say that because he's not the only teacher former teacher running.
You know that the people that saw Paul Stefan online on the debate, a lot of people thought that he was kind of kissing the ring for Arun and Kwawi. Like, it seems like he was kind of inclining more with them.
He was the
like
third
kissing their
candidate
butt.
instead
Yeah, a lot of people was like,
Bethany.
it kind of felt like he was kissing the ring with them. Yeah.
You know what? You know why I hate him? Because his name's Paul, like Paul J. Haley.
Oh,
I
God.
hate him.
Paul.
I mean, listen, he was fine. He's affable. He just parroted a lot of what the others were saying in the debate. Like, okay, whatever. Then there's the Bennett, Brown, Kapadia slate. I got to get it right. I'm just remembering my lawn sign.
Yes.
And, you know, they went at it. They pointed out the incumbents' deficiencies, which, by the way, is fair game. They don't have a great track record. And I did like what they said about the need for the board and the district to kind of get back to basics, right? Like focusing on student outcomes, focusing on the whole child.
That's what Rocio Lopez says, that we
Yeah.
got to focus from the basic. Yes. Sherry,
Yes.
we got to go to the basic. I agree.
Whole child, you know, the arts, the athletic fields, they have been open about being pro-turf. They talked about multi-year and transparent budget process. One of the things I found really disappointing was when I think it came to budget, Kwawi just talked about what like the superintendent had in mind and what others did with budgeting, and kind of, you know, as the president of the board, you should have a very clear vision on the budget, and he just did not. And you know, this slate also talked about bringing the temperature down, which I really
I think everybody
appreciated.
wants that. Is it possible to bring that temperature down?
100%. You just need the right people. I served on the board for 7 years.
Yeah, but you didn't have some social justice group around at the time.
I did. They just weren't as toxic, you know. There were always social justice groups around, right? The other side, when I ran, claimed to be pro-equity and said my team was anti-equity. Their campaign manager sent out a whole email to a whole bunch of people calling me a racist, even though she didn't even know me at the time.
Yeah.
So listen, you know, the people behave abhorrently during Board of Ed elections. It's gone on for as long as I can remember, but it has 100% gotten worse. I would say, you know, starting in
I think in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Easy.
I
I've been
think
hearing
so,
this
too.
since my kids
So
were
let me
in
ask-
elementary.
Let me ask you a question. If Kapadia, Brown, and Bennett get elected, and that's you know, seemingly a very good possibility, do you think that's going to lower the temperature?
I think it will. I think it will. You know, I think it will. I think, you know, what's interesting to me about the climate. So people have been saying this year has been much calmer. I think Bethany even said that. This year has been much calmer. And, you know,
Because they have the majority of
votes.
votes. They are in the majority. That's why.
And that's
Who's in the majority?
The majority meaning Will and what are their names?
Yeah.
Will Myers.
so there's
Kwawi.
Arun, Will, Liz, and Shayna, right?
Yeah,
So
they
they're kind of
they're the majority of votes right now.
caucusing together, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, they're on
Yeah.
the same side of
Gotcha.
the
Right,
spectrum.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
similar, you know, campaign infrastructure, et cetera.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Similar sides.
Then that's 5 of them, and there's 9. So yeah.
I
they
think
got
when you
them.
look at the climate of the board, you've got to look at who's in the minority, right? And I my entire tenure on the board, I was part of the minority. And at one point, I was like the only one left from my entire, like, you know, small group of minority members. I think it was like me and Johanna.
Joanne.
Well, she spent a lot of time yelling at me, but anyway, all this to say, when Caitlin Whitlatter was the president, Arun and Kwawi were in the minority. And to truly understand what they mean by collaboration, everybody in this community should watch the reorg meeting for Caitlin Whitlatter that happened in January. I guess it was 2022.
Sounds about right.
23?
22.
I have the date wrong, but it was just very telling, right? And so these guys spent basically the majority of their effort trying to make Caitlin's life miserable, starting with the reorg meeting. And they spent, you know, that's where their focus went instead of moving the district forward for the kids, right? So they behaved terribly at the reorg meeting, claiming they didn't get their desired committees, et cetera. By the way, nobody gets all of their desired committees.
I was gonna say that. I mean,
It just doesn't work that way. In May of that year, they made up all the lies during the reorg meeting, right? That was blundered by Dr. Taylor at the time, where he didn't pull the board together and get their sentiments about the renewals. And so, then suddenly the rumors were in the air about Caitlin and some other board members colluding in the back to, get rid of Sanchez and to get rid of some of the other administrators, right? So that happened in May. In November, when the Whitletter board decided to put Dr. Taylor on admin leave, they called her a racist. They called other people racist. They allowed Dr. Taylor to burn the district down on its
He
way
did
out.
burn it down.
And then, in that meeting, Arun called Caitlin a liar in public because she fact-checked his claim that it was going to cost $400,000 to bring another superintendent to do the superintendent search. I mean, that is just not good behavior.
She really took a heat. The poor Caitlin. I can't blame her for
No,
not trying to run again.
She's out. She's not running again.
She's not running again. And you know what? That's right for everybody involved, right? Because I think even she realized were she to remain on the board, the focus would be on her and not the kids. And so,
that's
and
but she's
also
good.
think
She's good, right? I mean, she's
a lot of people liked her.
she's good. Listen, I think in the debate, back to the debate, I think Deirdre Brown and Bimal Kapadia showed extremely strongly, right? They are newbies into this race. They're not known.
Surprised me. I underestimated him. I was like, oh, Brown and Bennett's going to have this. But when he spoke, I was like, okay, change my mind. Kapadia.
Really articulate.
He was really good.
Yeah.
What
reasoned.
was this thing with Brown? Did we touch on that?
Yeah, we touched it earlier.
Yeah,
That's where it comes Brown.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so
I mean, listen, these guys showed strongly. Deirdre Brown actually brought up a lot of great points in the debate, and I think she's
and they all focused on that one thing.
Well, she's threatening to them, right?
She said, "Oh, I liked Sanchez." Or
Yeah,
whatever.
she said that she was a supporter of Frank, and that one.
I believe what she said is that she's a proponent of Friends of Frank, right? Which meant she believed in their work. And
she sees a lawn sign, she goes thumbs up or something. It could be that
That's what
simple.
I kind of understood. She was saying she supports Frank and she supports all the people that have been helping Frank. I thought that was the message, but apparently they twisted around.
I guess they put out this really mean-spirited Facebook post. And meanwhile, ironically, they are supporting Kwawi and Arun, who have turned this tragedy into their political campaign. So I don't know how that works. But, Arun started his intro by saying he couldn't get anything done because he was so preoccupied with the Frank situation. So I
wish
understand
Frank would
how
tell
that-
these guys to stop using his
shouldn't be in the
name.
Frank. That's what I was asking you earlier. Shouldn't they be neutral and focus more on the kids than on the teacher? That's not your job. That would be the superintendent's job.
While this was happening, the district was falling apart. We had a budget crisis, right? I mean, they were heading towards a reduction in force.
Did he really said that? I kind of missed that part when he said that he was busy focusing on.
I mean, Rita's Village Green statement too. I think he said it there too. All these things were happening in the district. By the way, you have a new superintendent coming, which, kudos actually to everybody on the board, including Kwawi and Arun, for bringing on Mr. Bing, right? That is one place where they galvanized together, collaborated.
As they should.
Looks like they brought a great person on. So I think, that should be acknowledged, right? Kudos to them. Let's also not forget that had it been their way, Dr. Taylor would still be here today, right?
True.
So,
If they had all the votes. We didn't know how the votes would have gone in the...
With Dr. Taylor?
Yeah.
Was Taylor controversial during the original hire? Were there people saying, wait, his background, or was it just,
I think, yeah. So I think that was the case. I think some people, including some of the board members, who I think did have concerns about Dr. Taylor.
I remember they wanted more information.
Yes, they wanted more information. And so, I think there were some concerns, but it wasn't, I don't think, a widespread concern. I
No,
actually
it
don't
wasn't a
know.
But
widespread
with Bing,
concern.
Bing, there doesn't seem to be any. Nobody has said, "Hey, did you see this or read about that?" Or he had the problem in his prior district, or he got
No,
fired.
the reaction to Ben is
Yeah.
completely different from the reaction
Right.
to
It seems like you
Taylor.
just got an experienced guy who's had a clean,
Yes,
good,
it
healthy
looks
record
that
of
way.
achievement.
I think Jeff, I adore Jeff. No one knows more about anything than Jeff
Yeah,
Bennett.
I've learned that when I've
state
chatted with him.
aid,
I just wish
finances.
he would talk louder.
He talks so low.
Yeah.
And Jeff is a deep, deep thinker. And
Yes.
when you try to constrain him to 1 minute, it's a disaster
Yeah.
because he just knows so much. So I feel like, I adore him. He was a little awkward in the debate.
You're
but-
asking him to say too much too soon, too quickly.
Well, yeah, I think he was hampered by not having enough time because he does have such a storehouse of knowledge. And to my mind, he is exactly what a district in financial crisis needs. And so I hope that is,
Because I'm an idiot, but I speak very quickly. I would have kicked ass during this debate, it sounds like. You got to get a question in a minute. I
Don't
would have said,
worry,
I'm going to make changes, and things are going to be great. You can't believe it. That's a minute. That's
Don't
like a
worry,
minute
we're
right
going to
there.
have
Perfect.
Jeff Bennett soon, and we're going to let him talk all his thoughts.
Yeah, right.
I
We will.
think there is definitely. I don't think I'm the only one who thought that Bennett, Brown, and Kapadia, ran away with that debate, because when you see all the mean posts now coming out from the other side,
Oh my God.
it seems like people are a little scared. I don't know. I heard that in pairs, maybe somebody reposted this in talks. Which, by the way, I'm just gonna say I hate sharing screenshots. That's just my point of view. It's fine. You guys do what you want. But I think, somebody in Pairs was spreading misinformation that Jeff voted against critical infrastructure changes.
He said
I
something
think that was
about
Parents of Equity. That was
Yeah.
not in Pairs. I think it was in Pairs. Maybe it could have been
No,
Pairs.
it is Pairs.
Oh,
Pairs
it was
is
Pairs?
the same. So just to set the record straight, I was on the board with Jeff in 2013 when the entire Board of Ed at that time voted not to spend tens of millions of dollars for an aquatic center in the middle of, budget tightening, basically, right? We also did it because while we were thinking about these construction projects, we found out that the pool was leaking and would have to be taken out of commission. And so, there was debate about whether the pool should be salvaged, many reasons not to salvage the pool, right? And whether we should rebuild a pool. But there were no partners who were going to help us in that. And it would have cost the district all this money, additional tax levy. And also, I just want to mention all these people like talking about equity in the pool. We talked to so many kids. Our student rep at the time told us that basically 0 students had learned to swim from that swimming program. And actually, some girls of color, which I totally understand too, because, I wouldn't want my hair wet during the day, said they didn't like the fact that they had to get their hair wet during the day. And so there was a curriculum is not allowing you to teach kids what you need to teach them, which is learning to swim. If that curriculum wasn't doing that, why would you keep it?
I would not have. My high school had a pool. I would not have gone swimming during school. I mean, no way in the world. No way in the world.
Also, can you imagine being a teenager in your bathing suit,
and you wouldn't know it from now
in front of everybody?
Because I don't know. But I used to have long blonde flowing hair, and I was.
Oh my God!
And it took a long time to get it to look like that way. And I can't. But seriously, I did have long hair. I couldn't imagine going to the pool, and I have like a Jufro, So I would spend all morning combing it. Well, not anymore. Getting it down, and it would pop up when it was wet.
Is that even a term?
And I'm a guy.
I did have swimming in my school district, but it was in middle school, right?
Yeah.
When
nobody
kids
cares.
are younger, and I mean that's when you really need. That's when there's more harm. Actually, it should actually happen in elementary school. To be honest with you, listen, Jeff is not against critical infrastructure changes, right? He voted. There was a second plan then presented that kind of covered all the schools. He obviously voted for all of those infrastructure upgrades. But I'll tell you who is against infrastructure upgrades.
Who?
Kwawi Telesford. Did you know he voted against the LRFP construction resolution? It was a 5-1 vote, and he was the only one to vote no.
And what was that? That was
to kick off the long range facilities plan bonding.
which is essential.
Correct.
And what was his reasoning?
I have no idea.
But he voted no.
Somebody should ask him.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's like no, everything's fine. Kind of vote.
I just think if if you live in a glass house, like, don't cast stones.
Yeah.
Right? People pay attention here. Some people do pay attention, and we know what's going on here.
Yeah.
And so
No,
I
there's
just
nobody.
think
Nobody in their right mind is looking at this. The whole. I mean, Maplewood, Columbia High School, the schools. I mean, there's a lot of work. You walk through these schools. There's walls are coming down. I mean, it's these are not modern buildings.
No.
And you know what? If you, in the middle of a Board of Ed election, are going to spread misinformation, shame on you, right? Who are you helping? You're not helping the larger community.
It's like negative. That's Trump stuff. That's negative campaigning. It's what about you? Never mind me. He stinks. She stinks. She's no good. That's what it sounds like to me. It's a very Trump type style of. Sorry, guys. I know that's an evil word to say around here, but this sounds very Trumpish. Some of the
Matt,
shit
I wanted
that
to
you're
ask
telling me.
you something. Out of everything you've heard, what has been the biggest misinformation that your jaw dropped? You're like, I cannot believe they just said that. Like,
there were a couple of moments when that happened. I think for me, my biggest jaw drop was when Arun took credit for getting all kids busing over 1 mile because they had been fighting adequate busing for so long. Now, in fairness, I think, that board did go to the Board of School Estimates and did, in fact, get additional tax levy for busing, which is another piece of misinformation, by the way, that the other side would have you believe that all of our budget crises are due to the fact that we gave busing back to families as part of the intentional integration. That additional busing actually was through an additional tax levy, so completely out of the operating budget.
Got it.
So yeah, that was kind of a doozy. Kwawe talked a lot about his data committee. Like, has anyone heard of this data committee? I have no idea what this data committee is or what their output is. Now, I also haven't been diligently watching board meetings and, reading board
What is that committee about?
minutes. I'm not sure because I think it's a universal agreed upon fact that the district's data collection and reporting is abysmal. So we were stalled on the Fergus recommendations for a bunch of years because the district couldn't provide them with the data that Dr. Fergus needed to make his recommendations, right? So I'm not entirely sure why he even brought up that data committee. I was surprised by some of the answers that they gave during the question around which BOE policy would you change?
That was an interesting one, actually. I agree with you there.
It was. And, the board's number one role is policy governance, right? You should always be evaluating policy and, relooking at policy. And we have had board members over the years who were very good at that and some who had never read the policy manual ever. And so, I just feel like Kwawe and Arun they are the most knowledgeable, right, about policy. And they gave what I thought were the most kind of wishy-washy answers.
Well, they basically said they wouldn't change any policy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And and Arun showed a little bit of himself. He made some obnoxious reference to something Deirdre Brown had said. He said something like, if you're coming on the board to undo or change policies, you haven't done your homework and you don't understand how things work.
Kind of looking down like the old, I know more than you do.
It is.
Well, they both kind of said it in a very subtle way.
Yeah,
they did.
That's called mansplaining, by the way.
It's called a constant stream of cringeworthy Me Too moments in terms of how he talks to women. He should probably get a little media training.
I have a good
before the next
question.
debate.
See, ladies, mansplaining is when a man goes ahead and tells a woman how to think. That's mansplaining. So.
Why are you looking at me?
I just mansplained. I just mansplained.
It. Why are you looking at me? Madhu, this question is really important because I've seen a lot of people asking about this. It seems like parents are ones to take their kids from one school to another, and they say that they've been denied the request.
The hardship transfer?
Yeah, and they don't know, there's a lot of things that they think that is the Board of Ed that are making that decision, or is it Mr. Bing, or is this committee, they're not giving them a reason why they're being denied to transfer to one school to another. And
that's interesting. Yeah.
That was, I don't know if you read that big thing, and a lot of people thought that it was at the committee with Arun and Kwawi are that they're kind of making that decision because
what?
They are in this committee, I think it's FA.
Oh, FFT.
FFT.
Yes.
And it seems like some parents have been told that they're the one making that.
I did hear about this.
What is with that situation? Because the parents don't know who's making the decision. One accuses the other accuses the other.
Well, that is a huge problem because there should be a very clear rubric for how transfer decisions are being made, right? And so when you get your decision, they should be telling you, here's the rubric ahead of time, right? And this is what criteria you did not meet.
But the parents are not getting that. And that's what they're questioning. Why did I get denied?
That is a problem. Second of all, this is, again, an administrative decision. So if it is coming to the board to make that decision, that is a problem on so many levels.
It's the committee, the FFT.
Okay, that's even worse because now you've got a subsection of the board, not even, the full board making that decision. You've got some people who have decided they should be the ones making that decision. But also it's really bad because that means the parents have no recourse. Usually if you get an answer you don't agree with from administration, you can appeal to the Board of Ed.
Yeah.
But
they don't know who to appeal or anything.
Well, there isn't anybody to appeal to. Who are they going to appeal to, right? The Board of Ed is the final authority if they're making that decision, which, by the way, they should not be. So somebody should be looking into that because if that's how the process is working, that is just not
was
good.
I don't know if we touched on it. Was the teacher the impasse? Was that discussed during the debate, the current situation with the contracts and all?
It's still up in the air, the contract, right? Where's that
Were the
going?
candidates asked about it at all?
Nobody touched about that
Really?
in the debate. No, because
you can't really talk about personnel. I think that's probably why. Yeah.
Even during a debate, you can't say what. I guess.
Well, because the new candidates can make an opinion about that. Only Kwawi and Arun can.
And they can't reveal
And
anything.
they can't really talk about it. Where are we?
Oh, no, actually, you know what? I take that back. We are at impasse right now, right?
So we can talk about
it.
it.
So that means everything is kind of out in the open.
Where are we with that right now? We're still no dates, anything coming out.
Teachers are begging for more money and they're not getting it. That's the impasse right now.
This goes back to a larger problem with Kwawi and Arun and their support of the BA. The BA basically said publicly that he would not do multi-year forecasting, which is insane because
what does that mean? He won't do
He won't project out what the school budget would look like in 3 years, in 5 years, right? Which is crazy because you have these negotiations, you have these 3-year contracts or 2-year contracts, right? And there's an increase in salary every year. 95% of our school budget, I think, is salary and healthcare, right? So, when you make negotiation decisions, it has long-term impact.
Sure.
And if you're not forecasting out that impact, how are you going to make a budget?
Exactly.
Right? So, part of the reason I think we're in this place is that our teachers were underpaid. We gave them what was a very nice raise, right? And necessary, but didn't quite get them up to competitive salaries, got them much closer. Mm-hmm. And I will say salary is about one part of the larger contract, right? There's, paid time off, there's healthcare, there's like with any employment contract, there's a whole package of things
exactly,
that you're
a whole package.
But when it comes to the salary, we went up quite a bit. I think it was like 5% or something that we went up, and that's a very large increase, right? So
3 or 4%.
I think it was close to 5% last year that in the last negotiation. I don't quote me on that, and I should have done my homework. But my point is they got a very big bump, and perhaps that bump is not sustainable because the last business administrator basically drove our district into the ground financially.
Yeah.
So it's a tough situation. Where are we going to get the money to pay the teachers what they deserve? Right now, it's only gonna come one way, and that is increasing the burden on the taxpayers.
Oh boy.
Which, by the way, I will say is already very, very high. My neighbor
Not cheap to live here.
Yeah,
No.
trying to sell their house, and
Are they
came
leaving
and
because of
looked
the
at
taxes?
No. They're just moving within town, which is fine. But like some of these houses, my house too. Like I worry about.
Do you know that Madhu lives in a Tudor house?
Oh, you live in a Tudor?
No, it's
Ileana
like a
loves
stucco.
I know. I saw Madhu. I was like, ugh.
Yep.
I mean, were you part of the Soma Justice discussions about my house during the turf debate? Because I heard they spent a lot of time talking about my house.
No, but must be a lovely house that it gets mentioned. Yeah, no one ever talks about my
Hey,
house.
if I ever lose my house, I'm moving with Madhu.
Yeah.
You're always welcome to.
Ileana would like a wealthy Jewish man who owns a Tudor home. If you listened last week, this is what we. So this week we're talking Board of Ed. Last week that's what we were talking.
Can you
about.
imagine a guy comes out and is like, I heard your podcast. I have a Tudor house.
And I'm Jewish and I have a lot of money. So anyway, Jewish men out there, Tudor homes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, please call 973. What's your phone number, Ileana?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
3.147689.
I know.
Yeah, so, here we have it. It was a great debate. Listen, there are 2 more debates coming up, right? The CCR
Are
debate.
you going to be there for the other 2 debates?
I hope to be. I want to get more informed. And I don't even have kids in the school district anymore, by the way. My daughter graduated in 2022. My son, and she is thriving
Your son is
in
very
college.
handsome. Have you seen her? You look like a
Well,
model.
He takes after his mom.
Looks like a
certainly,
model.
right?
Thank
Like
you.
he looks like a model. I'm like, oh my God.
By the way, guys, you all should be very jealous of me. I'm in a room with 2 beautiful women right now, and you're not.
Well, my son is thriving. He goes
awesome.
to a different school. He's at Seton Hall Prep, which we are super, super happy with. It's the right place for him.
But but your other child graduated from
Columbia, but
high school.
But I stay involved in board, things. One, because I gave 7 years of my life.
Of
to
course.
It matters to
this
you.
community, and this community matters to me, and these kids matter to me. I feel a part of the fabric of this community. But also, eventually, I am going to have to sell my Tudor house.
Yeah, see, it's a Tudor.
It's actually not. It's a stucco. I don't even know what
It
it's
does
called.
look like a Tudorish kind of vibe.
But I want to make sure that when I sell it, that people are going to be excited about the school district
Right.
and not horrified by the taxes.
Sure, you look at the long-term investments of we're all investors. Or everyone's in Soma. The school system is a big thing. It's a big part of it.
I mean, 60% of your taxes, people. So I'm going to say what I said last time, which is like everybody pay attention.
Pay attention, right? 60% of your taxes, then you have to send your kid to private school because the school system isn't offering your child specifically what they need to thrive. Which
there's that too. Listen, I was so happy to see that debate so well attended, and I hope the other ones are too.
That's good.
I think a lot of people are paying attention.
I gotta say, politics bring the worst out of people. Every time the Board of Ed or the township committee or the trustee comes up, it brings the worst out of people, man.
It's gotten worse. And, but Rocio Lopez, when we had her on, she said that one of the things that she liked about these groups that we've been talking about is, at the very least, she says she doesn't agree with them, but they organize and they bring out people in numbers. She says, and that ultimately, as we said, what do we do to the groups that we think are wrong and ludicrous? And she's like, start your own group, build them up, come to the come to the meetings, get involved, be loud, be proud, and so. To those of you out there, and I know because on Soma Talks, I know that there's some younger parents.
Soma parents, there's a lot of young parents
and they've
too.
joined on, and they say, and one of them reached out to me. She thinks I'm like the smartest guy, and I'm not. But she said, what can we do to get involved? My husband and I were young, and we want. And that's exactly what I said. I said, meet people your own age, with kids your own age, get involved.
Yep.
Once your kid
organize
starts in the school
and try to be
district,
logical and smart and some of these crazy ideas that are being bandied out there, you guys are gonna be the ones batting that away. And
Yeah,
getting...
I agree. Listen, I got really excited about Bennett Brown and Kapadia because I felt like they had really good ideas. Deirdre Brown is a policy expert. Like, that is what the board does. Bimal Kapadia, you know, strong advocate of the arts, the whole child. I also, as a communications and marketing person myself, I appreciate anybody who brings that to those skills to the board, right? Not that they're going to do the communication, but that they automatically have a very client-centric, like community-centric, service-centric outlook, right? At the end of the day, the school service district is here to serve the students, the community, right? So I think, you know, his answers were so articulate and great. And I mean, Jeff Bennett needs no selling. He will bring more knowledge to the board than even the administrators have, to be honest.
He's a pro. He's a pro at this.
Smart.
I mean, he's going to come in from day one and understand because he's done it before.
And he truly, I think, in a time where we are under fiscal pressure, right, from internal and external forces, right, this negotiation is going to be critical because it is going to shape the district's finances for a couple of years.
That's true.
Our taxes, we've got this huge long-range facilities plan, you know, that we're going to spend years kind of paying off those bonds, right? But Jeff is somebody who also has looked externally at additional revenue sources, right? So he's looked at state aid. He's advocated for state aid. You know, he knows the places to pull triggers. And he also has great ideas, which he started to talk about a little bit too deep, about how to cut, you know, some costs.
He did talk briefly about that. He touched that, but he didn't finish the whole idea. He got cocked off out of the minute. Yeah,
you can't
say
give Jeff Bennett a minute. But you know, and I'm sad that there was such a short amount of time to answer these questions.
But it was a good debate. It was a good debate.
It was a great
for
debate.
A start, for the first one, it was really good.
I thought it gave a good sprinkling of all the different candidates.
Was your mind made up going in? Did it change your ideas? Was anybody, you know?
Yeah, my mind. I mean, listen, I always am kind of. I've been very.
Going like an open book a little bit.
No.
See maybe somebody...
I went with an open book, and out of all seven, for me, who stood out was Kapadia.
Okay.
Kapadia. Hands down, Kapadia.
So you're endorsing Kapadia, Brown, and Bennett, Ileana? Is it?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Madhu?
Same. And I felt good about them going in, but I feel great about them after the debate. I thought their answers were great.
I can't vote for people that either ignore me or don't want to talk to me or not. I can. If you're, I mean, if
I'm endorsing Paul Stephen or Stefan, just so you know, because he ignores you. So Paul, you got my vote. All right, just so you know.
Stay tuned for more Happy Days.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of the Soma Talk podcast. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. The Soma Talk podcast name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service.